Good morning, my Empowered Empath Warriors. Welcome to the Self Empowered Empath Podcast. Okay, so I just wanted to briefly interject here and just say that this podcast is actually, it used to be in the Superconscious Success podcast, and I decided to create this as its own individual podcast to be able to help go with the brand of the Self Empowered Empath. And so that you'll know that the content that you receive in this particular podcast is going to be related to empaths. It's going to be related to narcissistic abuse and energy vampires and codependency and powering up as that empath you are designed to be. So if you find reference within the podcast, or if you're wondering why it's sort of like, says something about Superconscious Success, that is the reason why. If you haven't yet checked out Superconscious Success podcast, though, definitely go ahead and do that. That's got some great spirituality podcast episodes you may be interested in. This particular podcast, this is a podcast of mine and Terra Bundance's, and we are here to help you to power up as that empath you are designed to be. With both of us having struggled with codependency and other, issues being around narcissists throughout our lifetime, then it has really opened our eyes, and it's really something we are very passionate about. So I just wanted to interject here before we get into this episode, and I look forward to seeing you in future episodes. After a number of these are done, and I've actually converted them all across to the Self Empowered Empath, then we will start our official Self Empowered Empath podcast, where we will interview guests, but also we will do individual episodes, as I've just done one of my own on codependency. And this podcast is going to have either individual episodes with myself and Terra, or there's going to be joint episodes. There's lots of incredible content on its way for you. Okay, thanks so much for joining us today, and I will catch you later. Bye. Go. Hey there, Superconscious Success fam. Welcome back to another episode of our Self Empowered Empath segment with my good friend, Lisa Campion. Now, in this segment, Lisa and I aim to guide you towards becoming the powered up empath that is free of codependency, narcissistic abuse, and exposure to those energy vampires. Now, it's time for you to power up, and we're here to help you do just that.
And today we have an amazing guest with such an interesting story. And after she went through like a couple of really rough years of marriage with the Wolf of Wall Street, and that kind of put her through the ringer, she had to spend some time healing from that. And her transformation really required her to deeply self-reflect and see her part in the dynamic that went on. And this took her deeply into her own healing process. So we're super happy to have Nadine Macaluso with us, and she's going to help us understand how to gain awareness, how gaining awareness and expressing our authentic self can be a huge part of our healing process. And she utilizes the NARM method, Neuro-affective Relational Method, which works on healing our body's mind, spirit, and attachment patterns to help us support new and healthier habits. I'm super excited to learn about this because I have never heard about this modality, and I'm super interested in this. So happy to have you here, Nadine.
Hi, Nadine.
Oh, thank you. Good morning. Well, good night for you, but good morning for me.
Thank you.
Me too. I'm on the East Coast, so I'm in Rhode Island. So if you're in New York, we're not that far.
Okay, yeah, I'm in Florida. So yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And we're actually going to be talking about trauma bonding, which is something that is a difficult thing that we go through when we're dealing with narcissistic abuse. But before we do go into that, can you tell us your very interesting story about the experience that you went through, which has kind of led to this whole process of healing?
Sure. So let's see, how far do I go back? Okay. So at around 22, 23 years old, I was modeling in New York City, and I was going to the Hamptons, which is, that ritzy beach community outside of New York City. And it was the summer, and I was with my boyfriend, and I went to a party. And at that party, my ex-husband, the Wolf of Wall Street, saw me. Unbeknownst to me, I guess, he thought I'd be a good night new shiny object to have under his wing. So he kind of became obsessed with me and really pursued me. And we ended up meeting and falling in love, and we got married.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very fast and furious, so we met, and then 6 months later we got engaged, and then 6 months later we got married, which kind of ties into what happens usually with a trauma bond. And then as soon as I was married to him, all of the fireworks started.
Mm-hmm.
The emotional abuse, the coercive control, and he had a very serious Quaalude addiction, as depicted in the movie. So that was really hard for me, being a 23-year-old, having no idea what I was in for. And so at that moment, I said, I got to get to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to therapy at that very young age when I had first met him. And then I would say, 8 years later, we got divorced because I could no longer take it.
Yeah, I bet.
Wow,
I mean that.
intense.
I mean, that movie was an intense movie, so I can kind of not understand, but I can kind of figure out that would have been a really, really difficult experience. Now, before we actually get into all of that, can you explain to our listeners exactly what trauma bonding is, and maybe even starting at the place of what is narcissism, what is narcissistic abuse?
Yeah. So, I mean, if we look, the interesting thing too is that, when I left the Wolf, right, nobody talked about narcissism.
No.
Nobody talked about trauma bonding. So I was really in a forest with tons of trees,
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody was talking about that. I mean, there's narcissistic personality disorder is like any personality disorder, meaning that a person has behaviors, thoughts, feelings that are pervasive in work and in home or in their love relationship. Yeah. And usually they're very focused on image. They're very controlling. They're very self-absorbed. They like to be admired. And really, the whole relationship is about them, their needs, what they want, and when they want it.
Yeah.
So when you fall in love with somebody like that, and like I did, you don't know it usually, but you usually fall into something called a trauma bond. And a trauma bond is when you fall in love or connect or attach to somebody who harms, betrays you, and exploits you, but you stay bonded to them despite all of the abuse.
Yeah. And so at 22, 23 years old, like you said, it wasn't spoken about. And I guess you're still very young at that age. So you're very impressionable, and all somebody has to do is show you that attention and that, to feel like you're desired and that you're loved. And so they're very good at being able to draw you in. And
yes, so charming. It's part of the thing, right? They can pour on the charm.
You got to be careful of those charming ones.
Yeah. Yes. They're very charming. And again, right. The thing about it is with trauma bonding, and that's why it's great to educate people, is that a lot of times, especially at 22 or 23, like I saw the world through my eyes.
Yeah.
Through my lens. And I just assumed everybody
was like that. Yeah.
Well, guess what? They're not.
Mm-hmm. And did you have people telling you at that stage, did they see signs and did they try telling you? Because I know with trauma bonding, sometimes if people outside of the situation tries telling you, you're completely blindsided. And so you can't actually see it. Did you have anybody giving you signs?
No, not back then. Again, because remember, this was 25 years ago. So it really wasn't in the zeitgeist. I mean, my own psychologist wasn't even saying it to me. So I don't even know if it was spoken about in psychological circles, and it certainly wasn't spoken about in the public. And again, I'm glad you brought up the charming piece, Lisa, because that's what a narcissist is too. So charming, so fearless, so bold. Mm-hmm. And it seems like they're actually really going to protect you.
Yeah.
It's quite the opposite. It actually becomes the most dangerous place to be. So no, nobody warned me. Everybody was like, great.
Yeah, because on the outside, they can see this charm and they can see, he's, looking after my little girl, or he's looking after my friend. But behind
what a catch.
Doors,
what a catch, how lucky you are that you have this person. And I think that narcissists are incredibly shape-shifty, and they're actually very psychic. They're very intuitive. So they just know how to present themselves to be who you want them to be. If you want a knight in shining armor, that's what they're going to dish.
Right.
You know, if you want a protector, that's what they're going to give you. Like, and I think, like, you know, I don't know if you feel like you're an empath. I would definitely say that you are, you know, you have that sort of sensitive, you
Yeah.
know, personality. And then, and because as an empath, if you, like you said, when you're seeing through the lens, empaths always see the good in people.
Yeah.
They always see, like, kind of like at the soul level, you know? So
Mhm.
if there's one good part of him, that's what you are going to focus in on, you know, and just think what you see is what you get. And that's not the case.
Right. And so, you know, there's now this term love bombing, right? Where
Yeah.
Mhm.
a lot of times, so what that type of pathological lover will do is they'll, you know, tell you everything you want to hear. And there's something called twinning where you say, I love spaghetti. Oh, you love
So
spaghetti?
do
I love
I.
spaghetti. I love
Mhm.
tennis. You love tennis. And though, so that the twinning is mixed in with the love bombing of the tons of flowers and gifts and traveling and I love you, you're the love of my life. And so all of that, the intensity, the love bombing, the twinning, it puts you in kind of a trance.
Yeah.
You know it at the time. And so they get you and you have one image of them. And then once they have you, the mask falls.
Yeah.
Then you get to see what's underneath and what's behind.
And so
But it's
how did
great.
yeah, and so how did you, like, after, because it wasn't spoken about, how did you recognize after the 8 years that what was going on, and kind of like what was the catalyst that kind of made you go, I've had enough of this and I need to get out?
Well, yeah, again, there were no terms, and the brain loves terms, especially the emotional brain, because if they like categories, it allows us to figure things out. So I think, you know, they say a lot of times people that grow up in traumatized homes fall for these type of people. That's not true. For me, I live in a very calm, peaceful home with a single mother. And so when my ex-husband started to scream and yell at me, I was like, whoa,
Yeah, you were shocked.
what
Yeah.
is this? I don't even know. I'm living on a different planet. And so the years of the coercive control and abuse and the cruelty. And then once I had children and Jordan would not stop using all of his drugs, I just said, you know, this is enough. I've got to more, you know, a lot of times more than even saving themselves or the woman in the relationship really will do it for their children.
Yeah.
Right.
That's often the biggest catalyst is,
Yeah.
you know, this is not good for my kids to be watching this. And,
Right.
you know, what effect is this going to have on my children? So,
exactly.
So now you educate other women on being able to get through this trauma bonding, being able to get out of those sort of situations. So how do we start to, once we've recognized, and I mean, it's difficult not to recognize that you're being abused or that you're being yelled at all the time. How do we start to build up that strength to be able to say enough? I've had enough, because narcissists can be very aggressive. They can be, especially if you're talking about the you know, the outgoing, you know, we're not talking about the covert narcissists who are very manipulative and that, but how do we avoid that kind of thing as we step up and we stand in our power?
Right. I mean, I don't know that there's any real way to avoid it, but the first thing that once you start to feel inside of yourself that this isn't right, you have to really go and get professional help. Because it is a very scary, toxic place to be. And, you know, your friends might mean well, your family might mean well, but there are experts now in this field that can help you, remember, even safely leave. Because safe first.
So you can't always assume that it's going to be safe. And I think, like, once you have, as much as you said, like, when people will do it for their children, I think once you have children, it's even harder. And sometimes you get the narcissist who will get to you through your children, or make you feel like your children are threatened, you know? And that's when you really, like, you know, need, I think, help with somebody has some experience in helping people get out of domestic abuse situations, because it can be really, really hard to do that, you know.
It can be really, really hard. And, my suggestion is never to tell them you're leaving.
Yeah.
That's never a good idea.
Right.
Okay. The
That's
best
when
thing,
they
Yeah.
double down on everything.
the best thing
Yeah.
you can do is just keep living your life as normal as possible. Keep behaving in the same way that you're behaving, and you kind of do to them what they've done to you. Now, behind your mask, you're planning, you're getting educated, you're building your strength, right? To be able to leave. And nobody can really tell you when to leave. That is really it's your life. You get to make that decision, but you will know, but you must be prepared.
Yeah.
You must be prepared financially. You must be resourced emotionally. You must have people that do know. Like I've helped a lot of women where they've said to me, he's doing this, he's doing that. And I said, okay, text a friend. The next time he's physical, text your friend, let her know, and let her call the police.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to have plans on the side that they don't know about. And it works.
And I think one of the difficult things, and I know when we talk about covert versus overt narcissists, I know that one of the things is because they are so good at manipulation, because they are so good at putting on that mask, then they trick people. And so then the moment that you try and tell somebody, and even so much as parents, and try telling them, they go, oh, you'd never do that. No, it's all in your head. And so then all the gaslighting starts. And so they can start to sort of like turn other people against you. So I think it's finding that support network that actually believes what you're talking about, maybe that he hasn't gotten to yet or she hasn't gotten to yet, because it does happen with females as well. So there are female narcissists out there that do the same thing to their husbands. So, so I think, as you said, it's really important because safety is of utmost concern. And if you go and you tell a narcissist, I'm leaving you, then watch out. Everything's going to start happening.
Yeah, because a lot of I call them pathological lovers, because usually there's a mixture of a bunch of personality disorders, psychopathy mixed with Machiavellianism, mixed with addictions. And a lot of times when you tell them, they do something called a scorched earth policy, where they say big dramatic things like, if you leave, I'm going to detonate a nuclear bomb over your head, or if you leave,
I'm going to kill myself,
I'm going to kill myself, or I have cancer. I mean, I've even heard that, where they're lying about that. So once you do that, they usually up the ante, and that's another form of manipulation. Or they start to blame you and say, you know what, you're the whole reason that I'm like this. I was never like this before. They love to blame their partner, their bad behavior, because they project a lot of that onto their partners. So once you really get it in your gut and your soul, there's really no use in telling them you see them.
No. Because they are only ever concerned about who they are. And so no matter what you try telling them, if it doesn't fit in with their own view of themselves, then they're just going to push against it. And it's like, and then all of a sudden the gaslighting starts. All of a sudden it's your fault that I'm like this. All of a sudden it's like, like we said, if you leave, then I'm going to kill myself. Or if you leave, then, then I'm going to hurt your kids, or whatever it is. And sometimes, so if we're talking about like overt narcissists, they're pretty easy to spot in many ways. Covert narcissists, not so much, because I think they kind of hide under the veil. So can you explain kind of the difference between those two? Because obviously your husband was more of the overt.
Yeah. So the covert, the overt is very, they have a lot of agency. They can make things happen in the world, and they're very extroverted.
Yeah.
Right. And they really are kind of immune to stress. Where the covert is, no, they're not immune to stress. They're usually highly neurotic. They usually have anxiety or depression. They're also highly irritable, and they're much more subtle. But the two things the one main piece that holds them together is they're highly antagonistic and hostile
Yep.
about every single thing. And they're usually both very controlling in different ways. So in some ways, the overt is easier to spot because they're larger than life and big, and they know how to make things happen. And the covert one is more in the shadows and more passive aggressive, more manipulative. They're even bigger blamers and highly jealous. Actually, they're both highly jealous.
I think the covert ones are really, their whole strategy is to totally keep you in the blaming, so you're totally off balance all the time, and you're like, what's going on here, and is this really happening? And they always isolate you. And because they isolate, it's like trying to leave a cult in a way. Like they isolate you from all your people if they can, and then you're kind of like in that spinning place where you don't know what's real. And if you don't have people to help, if nobody ever sees what's going on, then how can you be sure that it's going on? Maybe you really are crazy, Yeah,
and and the really sad part is that the partner is going into this relationship fully in love. And fully trusting and really believing that this is a person that they can build a life with. So aside from all the crazy making communication and the spaghetti brain and all the gaslighting and the blaming, inside they're heartbroken that this is happening.
And they feel guilty because they're like, how can, I think it gets to the place that the person that's with the narcissist, which is most often an empath, because we tend to sort of like be attracted to them, will start to go, I feel guilty for feeling like this about them. I feel guilty for thinking about like this about them. And so then they start to doubt themselves, and they go, am I just making this up? Am I just being too harsh? Or, maybe it's just had a stressful day, but you can't have stressful day after stressful day every day and be able to take it out on somebody else.
And there's a lot of shame for the partner. There's a lot of embarrassment. There's a lot of humiliation. Why didn't I see this? How can I keep putting up with this? I keep telling my friends the same story and never leaving. So there's a lot of shame too. And just think about it. What is shame? Shame makes us want to hide.
And not bring it out. And then if people don't believe, like your family doesn't believe, or lawyers, police, judges don't believe,
they're very good at actually hiding it from psychologists.
And lawyers and judges. So when you go into the court system, sometimes you just they win. They win, and they get close, like they really put up a fight and somehow make you look like you're the. I've seen it so many times where they end up with full custody of the kids, or they end up like really, with the upper hand, because I think of this shape-shifting acting, they're like method actors, that they do.
Because it's all a game for them. That's what it is. It's all a game. It's all like, how am I going to get what I want?
Right.
I don't.
They want to win. They always want to win, and they want to be right.
If it hurts you the most to get the kids, that's what I'm going to do, even though I don't really want them.
And the court system, personality pathology is a very, it's a very intensive topic, right? So, I went to school for 2 years, got my master's, then went to school for 3 years, got my doctorate, wrote my dissertation for 2 years, studied the Neuro-affective Relational Model for 2 years, researched it for 5 years. This is not an easy, we're making it sound easy, but this is
not an easy thing.
Difficult person to manage. And so the court system is in no way equipped.
No, it's not. And I think that, when it comes to this, as you said, it's not an easy thing to do. If you're in that situation, you've completely lost your identity. You don't know who you are anymore. You've lost your self-worth. You've lost your self-esteem. You're living up to their expectations, or you're trying to live up to their expectations. And so we have to, I really hope that you're enjoying this episode, and I ask that you subscribe so that you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes that I publish from any of my different segments. So let me interrupt the show just for a moment to let you know about something amazing that I have to offer you. Firstly, if you haven't yet signed up for my free Superconscious Success Inner Circle, then definitely go ahead and do that now. However, that's not what I'm here to talk to you about. Today, I want to share with you about my brand new website called Universal Consciousness Workshops that hosts some incredible intensives all throughout the year. We have intensives for our 9-anchor transformational process, our self-empowered empath process, our 12 steps to ascension process, and many more. These 3-day online intensives are incredible and will provide you with insight that will allow you to grow and evolve as the individual you're designed to be. To discover what intensives are available right now, head across to universalconsciousnessworkshops.com/intensives and learn more. However, if you are wanting to receive 25% off both the standard and the VIP tickets for any of the intensives, then all you need to do is become a member of that Superconscious Success Inner Circle, which is absolutely free until I reach 1,000 members, at which time it will start to become premium. Get in now and you'll lock it in free for a lifetime. To sign up, just go to superconscioussuccess.com/inner circle. Okay, thanks so much for listening. Now let's head back to this episode. You have to change your whole thinking. You have to change your whole mindset and rebuild that back up again. And you can't do that while you're actually within the energetic area of the narcissist.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they're, I would say one of the number one effects definitely is a loss of self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're not allowed to have needs, right? Because they want to get service like their cars at the garage or they're at the massage table.
Because you're just another number to them.
Right.
Like
And
an object.
you can't set boundaries. So over time, if you can't express needs or can't get your needs met and can't set boundaries, more and more and more, you just keep losing yourself. And at some point, you're no match for them because how much are you going to fight every day?
Yeah.
You can't. Yeah.
You can't.
The only thing
Because they're always willing to take it to the next level, and that's hard for us sensitive people. Like we don't have that kind of fight in us, really. We just want everybody, we want there to be love. We want that, relationship. And we want to understand and be close and connect. And so we don't have that fight in us, I think, most of us.
Yeah. Well, Lisa and I we're in the middle of creating the Self Empowered Empath course and program, which is about teaching people how to be able to become that powered up empath, because we do surround ourselves with so many energy vampires because we're such compassionate, caring, considerate people that hate to be around, like we hate to see people upset, or we hate to see people hurting, and so boundaries. And Lisa and I often joke because empaths really are not very good at setting boundaries.
Yes,
and that's because of the fact that we do like to see people happy, and if they're not happy, we take it upon ourselves to feel bad about it.
Right.
What are some tips? Because I know that you being within that environment, were you able to set any boundaries with Jordan, or?
Oh God!
You tried?
That is so funny. No,
nothing. It was all him.
When I first met him, and I mean, you have to remember, I'm 23. I was modeling.
Yeah.
The last thing I was thinking about was getting married. And actually, I didn't want to get married till I was 30 because my parents had gotten divorced when I was a young girl. And so 6 months into meeting him, he was like, if you don't marry me, I'm going to leave you. I was like, what? Everything was a double down. And then as soon as we were going to get married, he's like, if you don't have kids, I'm not going to marry you. And I just was like, I don't want to have children yet.
Yeah.
I am 23 years old.
So he took away all your rights.
Oh, he would plow through my boundaries.
Yeah.
Plow through them. And I'm pretty strong. I mean, I'm from Brooklyn. I'm a pushover. And there was no having boundaries. I mean, that is just, no. Plow.
And because then you just get more abuse, don't you? The moment you try setting something, you just get they
double down.
Yeah. And I was like, and I didn't even, back then I didn't even know what the word boundaries was. So I was just like, oh, he just must really love me. He can't be without me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's honestly what I was thinking. I mean, I would get angry and angry and angry. But like Lisa said, I was no match for his tsunami of rage. No match. And then at some point you're like, okay, I acquiesce.
It's easier.
Yeah. And I think, you know, a lot of what my research has shown, this is interesting for your guys' work and for your listeners, is that there's a personality test called the 5-factor model of personality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the most universal personality test that
I've heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that describes 5 traits that people have. One of them is extroversion, one of them is conscientiousness, which one of them is agreeableness, another one is open to experience, and the other one is neuroticism.
Mm-hmm.
And so what the research has shown is that a lot of women who fall for these people score very high in agreeableness.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They're loyal, they're tolerant, they're trustworthy, and they score very high in conscientiousness, which means they're achievement striving, they're
Yep.
dutiful, they're orderly, they're organized.
They have
And so-
integrity. They do what they say
Yes.
they're going to do. And then
It's
we
an-
assume other people are like that.
So you mix somebody who's trusting and loyal and tolerant
With
who's
someone that's
living
neurotic.
an integrity oriented life, and so you could put them with somebody like this, you know, they're going to stay in it because they want it to work. They
Yeah.
believe in relationships
Right.
for their lives.
They take marriage vows and they are like stand by their
Yes.
vows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so these two beautiful qualities of being high in agreeableness and high in conscientiousness, which are great and actually make people live beautiful lives, get weaponized.
Yeah.
Narcissistic.
So been there.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think what also keeps people in those situations is because they go, well, maybe one day they'll change.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
one day they'll actually accept me for who
I
I
just
am.
love them enough. They'll get
I just
better.
love them enough. They'll get better. And you know, maybe it's my fault. Maybe I need to change, because if I change, then maybe they'll accept me for who I am. Is there any way that a narcissist is going to get better?
Well, I want to say 2 things. First of all, hope is the hook.
Yep.
Hope is the hook that keeps many people there, myself included.
Mhm.
Okay. And again, hope is a good thing, except when it's in the wrong hands.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I know it.
Yeah. I have seen some change.
Okay.
Takes
Well,
a lot of work though. They
that's
have to want to
promising.
do it.
They have to
Yeah,
want to.
they have to want to do it. And I have to say, more recently, in the past 2-3 years, I have seen men that are willing to change once their wives or partners truly show them that they don't need them,
Yeah.
and they do change.
Oh,
And
wow.
I've seen it. It's not the most common situation.
No.
I have a case right now where that happens, and the husband's therapy, she's in therapy, they're in couples therapy, they have 3 kids, and he's decided to change.
And there has to be a big enough need for him to do it. That's the thing. And so
Yes.
once she says, I don't need you anymore, I can do this on my own,
Right.
he's not able to suck the energy from her anymore.
No.
And so all of a sudden it's like, whoa, okay, I'm losing everything. And so sometimes they will kind of wake up, but there are strategies. Oh, go on, Lisa.
I just said I wrote this book. You know, I wrote this book called Energy
Yes.
Healing for Empaths.
Which is great.
Yeah, and I was surprised. I talk a lot about energy vampires in that book, which is narcissists. And I was surprised by how many comments I got from people who identify. First of all, they're like, I think I'm a narcissist and I don't know what to do. And I think I'm a narcissist and I want to change. And they were like, can you write a book to help narcissists who want to heal? And which is not really my jam. Like maybe you could, you know, write that book. But I was like kind of surprised. It was a lot of people who were like, oh, I think this is me and I want help. It made me feel kind of hopeful.
Yeah.
You know, about this topic a little bit.
I'm just wondering with that though, are they saying that they think that they're a narcissist because of the fact that maybe they're with a narcissist that has convinced them that they are a narcissist? Because I think
they really were, but I don't know. But that does happen.
Just a comment,
You know, narcissists will just turn around and tell you that you're the narcissist.
That you're the
narcissist. Of course they do that. Yeah.
It's a projection.
And a lot of times, like true narcissists do not think they're narcissists.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of times when people will say to me, well, I think I'm a narcissist, I'm like, just the fact that you think that, you probably know.
That's what
You
I'm
know, but
saying.
that
Maybe
doesn't-
there's,
that doesn't mean it. That doesn't mean that there, you know, that there aren't ones out there that recognize those qualities within themselves and want to change, because let's be real, it's a lonely life.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, you've kind of, in a way, you've got to kind of feel like a little bit sorry for them. You've got to kind of go, that must be really suck to be feeling like that all the time. And to know that, you know, the only person that you can actually rely on is yourself, because that's the only person that you care about. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, to me, I mean, but that's as an empath, you care about other people. So it's,
yeah, and right. And you have to remember, with personality disorders, this is what makes them different than mood disorders. So if we feel anxious or depressed, we kind of know, like, this doesn't feel right. Something feels wrong. So we call that ego dystonic. But when someone has a personality disorder, you have to remember, that's all they've known their whole life.
Yeah.
That's their identity. They just feel like, this is
normal.
me.
Yeah.
So we call it ego syntonic. So that's why also they don't change as much.
Yeah.
Because they're just like, this is me. What do you mean? You don't like it? And it's like, no, it's really harming me. Maybe you need to look at yourself. Well, I've been like this my whole life.
Yeah.
So they don't really understand until you really, really pound it into them that they're just, their personality is disordered. It's a personality disorder, right? It's not like a disease that's going to come and go, or a mood, right? It's like they have a disorder.
Yeah. Which takes a lot of work to be able to, because they need to really, I think, figure out their true identity, because this is all they've ever known. And so they're kind of like, it's kind of like their ego side is like over here, and then their spiritual side's over here, and they're not being able to tap into this. And so they're completely ego based. And I think that, you know, once they start to recognize, and like you said, it is not easy, and there's probably very few that will do it, because until they have a catalyst that is like, okay, if I don't, I'm going to lose everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's often the partner.
Or their children.
Or
I'm so curious about this method that you use. Can we talk a little bit about the
NARM method?
Yeah, because the NARM method, I've never heard of that one.
Yes. So right. It's the Neuro-affective Relational Model, but we call it NARM because that's a ridiculous name. And so basically what it is it's a theory that works on developmental trauma, meaning, you know, any lack of love or any lack of getting your needs met that happened from 0 to 6, because let's face it, nobody has a perfect childhood.
Yeah.
You know, no parents can meet your needs all the time. And let's say there's sickness or many children or poverty, right? Or racial issues that happen. So when children don't get their needs met, that's actually how we develop personality disorders or anxiety and depression that come later on. So what this theory does is it teaches you about developmental trauma, and then it uses the mind and the body to heal it, because trauma lives in the body.
Yes.
So I like to say, like, the ego lives more in the mind, and we can trick ourselves with our mind pretty good.
Yep.
But when you think about it, when you really feel something, you feel it from your neck to your pelvis.
Yeah.
This is where the true self lives, because this is where the emotions live.
Yeah.
And our emotions are our true self. So it taught me how to work with gesture, how to work with breath, how to work with posture. I'm working with a patient and they look away. I'm like, where'd you just go?
Yeah.
They'll tell me something that they weren't even going to tell me. So it's a beautiful theory, and it's helped me immensely in my work.
Fantastic.
And it's more true. Like a somatic theory, like working through the body.
Psychotherapy.
Yeah, because when you think about it, if you look at the chakra system and you look at the heart, the throat, the solar plexus, that's all from here down. You know, aside from the crown, obviously, but the fact of the matter is that's where the emotions, and so if you can tap into that, then that's where we can heal our trauma.
Exactly. So what, you know, like sadness and grief are in the throat, then we usually feel shame in the chest. We feel anxious or social anxiety in the belly. So a lot of times when people are talking and they're telling me the context, I'll say, you know, where do you experience that in your body?
Yeah.
And that's how we reconnect to our true self. Like you were talking in the beginning, how do you attach to your true self? That's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
You
Right.
go to the body, because
Yeah.
the body doesn't lie, the body
Yeah.
keeps
Always
score.
knows what's real.
Right. And so, what trauma does is it makes us disconnect from ourselves, which
Mm-hmm.
makes us disconnect from our body, because as children, we can't deal with those feelings. They're too
Yeah.
overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And so the work of therapy is to bring us back into the body, to connect us back to ourselves, no matter what's happened to you. That's really the work.
Yeah. That's
Fantastic.
beautiful. I love that. I'm all about a somatic-based therapy, and I
Yeah.
think we need to do some talk therapy because we have to
Of
know the
course.
concepts and the models. We have to have sort of
Sure.
a cognitive understanding of what's the patterning and stuff that we're
Yeah.
doing. But I think ultimately we have to release it. And I always see the trauma held in the nervous system and
Yeah.
stuck emotions held in the organs and
Mm.
and muscles.
Yeah.
So I think we have to calm the nervous system down too, and get it out
Yes.
of fight or flight. And
Yeah.
that's like that normal trauma response we have, to leave the body. It's just part of our fight or flight. That's the flight
Yeah.
part of fight or flight,
Yeah.
and I think
And even the fight part, because the anger, the energy of anger is up and out,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
It's still leaving us. But the
Yep.
work is also to learn how to be with your emotions, not
Yeah.
act them out or act them
Right.
in, but express them
Yeah.
and let them guide you.
Wow,
Yeah.
such beautiful work you're doing. It's so important and so
Oh,
necessary and
I
It
love it.
is. It
beautiful.
is. And I
And
think that. Oh, go on, Lisa.
I just wondered, did you write a book? Like, is this all in a book somewhere, or where is your
Well,
information?
yeah. So I on my website, I have a small digital book on trauma bonding. And right now, I got a publisher last year, and right now I'm writing a real book on trauma bonding. By the
Awesome.
way,
Good.
I don't know about you, Lisa, but hats off to you for writing a book. I think it's the hardest
I'm on
thing.
my third. I'm on my
Yeah.
third
Oh wow,
right
my hats
now.
off to
Yeah.
you. It's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
hard.
It is
So
hard.
hard.
It is hard work. When I was doing my naturopathic work, I wrote 8 books, and then
You ladies are rock stars.
but then I shifted to this field, and I absolutely love it. I love talking to people about spirituality and about healing, because I think that once we can heal from trauma or blocked emotions that we just can't seem to, maybe we've been told as a child that you can't cry or you can't get upset because and I mean, how many of us does that happen to? It's like, especially boys are told that they're never allowed to cry. And I think that the work that you're doing is amazing, because I think once you can release that, I think that can really help with. Do you find that it's mostly the victims of narcissistic abuse, or is it like you have the narcissists like coming for help too? Like you said, the husband and wife.
Sure.
Yeah, you have the partners as well. Cool.
Yeah. And the thing about me is I'm very direct, and I believe in giving people diagnoses, not to pathologize them, but to give them education so they can understand themselves better.
Yeah.
And then say, okay, you know what? I don't like these things about myself. This is what I want to change, and this is what I want to keep.
Yeah.
So you can't be fearful as a therapist when you're dealing with personality pathology, right? You just can't.
No, so what would you, because there are so many different types of personality disorders. Narcissistic personality disorder is one of them. You've got borderline personality disorders, another one. Psychopathy, sociopathy.
Yes.
So do they work in very similar ways as a personality disorder, or do they all have their own unique little aspects to them?
They have, I mean, the narcissistic, the borderline, the antisocial personality disorders, they're very similar. Those are cluster B disorders.
Yeah.
And then you have more avoidant and schizotypal disorders. So there's 3 different categories of personality disorders. I would say the borderline is probably, they come to therapy all the time.
Yeah. Is it, so how do you tell the difference between the narcissistic personality disorder and the borderline personality disorder?
Well, again, so the borderline personality disorder is a lot more like the covert narcissist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there much difference though? Like,
There isn't that much difference. I mean, there's all these little nuances.
Yeah.
But if there's unstable sense of self, there's a lack of, true authenticity. There's an inability to be able to deal with their emotions.
Yeah.
There's a lot of self-hatred and self-criticalness.
Which has a lot of really self-destructive and harmful, self-harming behaviors.
I don't find as many self-harming behaviors as like all the internet says with the borderline, like the cutting and all that. I mean, I do not find that. But what I do find is that their sense of self is all based upon the quality of their relationships.
Okay.
And they're too invested in all their relationships.
Right.
And I have to work with them on having their own identity separate from relationships.
So that's why when they break up with somebody or when they have some sort of distance, they take it really hard.
Or even somebody doesn't call them back.
Okay. So that's the difference between the two, because the narcissists don't really care. Whereas the BPD will take it to heart.
They're more thin-skinned, and the narcissist is more thick-skinned, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. So they're very self-critical, and so then they go for dinner with somebody, they leave, and they spend the whole time rehashing the dinner, thinking about what they said, and the person hates them.
Okay.
Probably hasn't even thought about it once.
No.
The person probably had a lovely time.
Yeah.
Right. So
they're overly critical.
They're real lovers. They want to connect, and that's why they come to therapy, because they want to get better.
Yeah, so they actually recognize that something's not quite right, so they'll come to therapy, whereas the narcissist will often not even care, and so they'll avoid therapy.
Yeah,
they'll send you to therapy. They'll send you. They'll be like, "You go to therapy."
Yeah, or their partner drags them.
Yeah.
And do you find a lot of resistance when that happens?
Do I find resistance? Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, but listen. I can't be attached to anybody's outcome, right? No. We all show up and then we allow the organic situation, and what emerges.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's so much really cool information. Now trauma bonding, one of the biggest problems is that once you have said that, say, you're going to leave, which never do, by the way, which we've kind of covered that.
Yeah.
They will try and reel you back in, and they'll love bomb you, right?
Yeah, there's a term. There's all these terms out there. Some people call it hoovering.
Yeah.
But I want you to think about it this way. Like controlling you is part of their life. It's how they stay stable. So once you're gone, as much as they think they're masters of the universe,
they've lost that energy.
Yeah, they actually panic. So they almost always want you back, honestly, unless you have the narcissist who loves to just have a pipeline of women and they discard you.
They just go on to the next one, and they don't even bat an eyelash. They're like,
right. And if that happens, by the way, kiss the ground.
Yeah.
Don't cry. You're lucky.
Let them move on. Right.
Let them just take another object. Boom.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Because I feel sorry for the other women, but the fact of the matter is that this doesn't just happen in marriages. This doesn't just happen in relationship, like in romantic relationships. This happens with kids. This happens with parents. This happens with
bosses.
Bosses. And so I think that, the information that we shared, trauma bonding can happen in any relationship. And the moment that they start feeling like they've lost you, watch out, because they're going to come back with everything that they can.
Everything.
And it's like, oh no, but I love you so much. Or, oh no, but you're the best friend ever, and so they're going to start throwing all the compliments at you to reel you back in. The moment you reel back in again, what happens? You start the cycle all over again. So it takes us being strong and knowing our sense of self. Because unless we know our sense of self, then I don't think that being able to stand up and go, okay, I deserve better than this. That's really difficult.
And being
Yeah.
really well resourced, I think, is the
Yeah.
other thing. So that you have, allies, therapists,
Yeah.
lawyers, whatever you need to kind of like
Yeah.
prop you up and help you while you go through it, because it's really rough.
Yes, it is. And especially if you have children and if you're financially dependent on your partner, there are these nuances that really make it trickier and trickier. And still there is a way.
There is, and there is hope, because the fact of the matter is that we have so many more resources in today's society than you did back when you were going through it. And so we're really we're blessed to be able to have all of this available to us. Having like Nadine being able to help you with this trauma that you've been going through, having programs like what Lisa and I are creating, having so many other amazing resources. It's really important to be able to rely on people and to be able to talk to people. And so, like they said, find other resources where you can actually go to. Find friends that maybe haven't had anything to do with the narcissist that you can talk to. And
there's all kinds of groups like now, like narcissist recovery groups and support groups and books and all kinds of things that I think can really help. And Nadine, I hope you finish your book, because I know that'll be an awesome resource when you get to
I'm
it.
going to finish it hell or high water.
It is hard work, but
6,000 words. I'm counting every word now.
But it's definitely something that's needed. So let us know once it's published.
I will.
Because it's definitely something that I'll grab a copy. I think it's going to be really an amazing one to be able to refer people to, because trauma bonding is something that I think we tend to miss. It's something we don't recognize.
Part of the equation for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
For being here with us and for talking to us about this topic and giving our listeners a little bit of an insight into how they can maybe start to feel good about themselves and move on and be aware of the signs of trauma bonding. Be aware of what may happen if, like we said, be prepared. Don't tell them that you're leaving. Never call a narcissist a narcissist. Because the first thing they're going to do is come back at you and say, you're the narcissist.
Yeah.
And, if you can avoid any of those confrontations as much as you can, we can preserve our energy. And I think within our program, we also have about cutting cords, which I think is really important. And I'm sure you've probably done some work with that, Nadine, with cutting of the cords. And I think it makes a massive difference with just being able to let go and remove that energetic connection that you have with that narcissist. So much to learn, but people that are dealing with it, you do have hope.
Yes.
You can do it. Nadine did it.
That's right. And, here's the thing, too. I just want to leave listeners with this, in that don't let people say to you, oh, you're just as responsible for it as they are. That's not true. That's simply not true. When someone is crueler and more controlling and more abusive and more manipulative than you, that's not your fault. That's their fault.
No, there's this. It's not your fault. They've got to take responsibility, and unfortunately, they don't take responsibility because they don't know they don't believe they're doing anything wrong. But
that doesn't mean we have to.
That doesn't mean that's on us.
Exactly. I hate these things with if you don't take responsibility, blah blah blah. No. I can take accountability for my part.
Yep.
And I'm not going to take responsibility for their part. And so I would just love to leave your listeners with that.
Yeah. And because that guilt and shame is something we have to work through, because you've got nothing to feel guilty or shameful about.
No.
And no matter how many times they try telling you that you do, just remember what's happening and understand that they're just trying to make you lose that sense of self so that you become entrapped within their version of you. So thank you so much for being here with us today, Nadine. We've learned a lot.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Jen.
And I said, as soon as you've finished that book, let us know, and we'll let everyone know about it. And yeah, you have a great rest of your day today.
You too.
But
Well,
before
you're
we
on-
do go,
right.
can you
Yeah.
please let our listeners know where they can get in touch with you if they're needing some more help?
Sure, yeah. So I think my Instagram handle is The Real Dr. Nadine. And then my website, I'm pretty sure it could be Dr. Nay or Nadine Macaluso.
Okay.
And my TikTok handle is Dr. Nay, DRNAE LMFT, because I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. But if you just Google Dr. Nay, Nadine Macaluso, it'll all pop up.
It's everywhere.
Okay.
Yep. Awesome.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you so
All right,
much for your
take care,
time
ladies.
today, Nadine.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.